Before music was consumed virtually, you had to physically visit a store to obtain music. As a kid growing up northeast of Toronto, that meant visiting one of 4 places: Sam the Record Man, Music World, Sunrise Records, and HMV, my go-to. Now, with 3 other stores available, why HMV? Firstly, music priced at HMV was usually cheaper than the competition. Now, this will make sense later in the video, but the second reason was because other places stunk. Literally. Thirdly, HMV employees were always more friendly. In turn, they made the store more welcoming. Much like our history can influence the qualities that make us as individuals, a company's history can influence the values that their customers can identify with. Which made me wonder, how did HMV's history look like? Hey, I'm Jay. Let's talk about HMV. When we do, we'll talk about the company's English roots, what HMV meant to me, its eventual Canadian history, and what the company evolved into. With all that being said, let's get this ball rolling. In 1898, Emil Berliner, the inventor of vinyl records and their accompanying gramophone players, joined forces with William Barry Owen and Trevor Williams, who helped manufacture those records and devices, to form the Gramophone Company. To produce content for those records, the Gramophone Company formed a record label called His Master's Voice. Why the name His Master's Voice? Well, William Barry Owen took inspiration from a painting by Francis Barrade of the same title. Unfortunately, the painting depicted a phonograph. To resolve this, Owen asked Barrade to recreate it, replacing the phonograph with a gramophone. What's the difference between a phonograph and a gramophone? A phonograph can record and play content, while a gramophone can only play content. Now, you have records to store audio, a device to play them on, and a record label to create content for those records. How do you get this content to the public? Needing a store to sell the records and devices led to Berliner, Owen, and Williams collaborating with British composer Sir Edward Elgar. This led to the July 20th, 1921 opening of the store His Master's Voice in London, England. One experience this store introduced was the ability to preview music. Done through listening posts, customers could listen to an album before it was purchased. In 1931, the Gramophone Company merged with the Columbia Graphophone Company, a record label known for classical music, to form the Electrical and Musical Industries Limited, or EMI Limited. As time progressed, the name His Master's Voice was shortened to HMV. By the 1970s, the company expanded to 35 stores in the United Kingdom. EMI eventually dabbled into film production. However, this placed a considerable strain on the company's finances. As such, in 1979, the company was acquired by electronics and rental group Thorn Electrical Industries, forming Thorn EMI. By 1987, with the company eyeing international expansion, it opened its first Canadian store in Mississauga, Ontario. By the late 1990s, HMV had 100 Canadian locations. Included in these locations were flagship stores, which were meant to give shoppers the ultimate music buying experience. To accomplish this required stores with a large footprint. As such, these stores had 2 or 3 floors of retail space. These were located in Vancouver, Edmonton, Montreal, and Toronto. Now, before we continue, just a side note. Now, this is fourth wall me chiming in for the sake of continuity, but the majority of my interaction with the company was done through the Toronto flagship store, so the next bits of this video will focus on this location. Okay, back to the rest of the video. The Toronto flagship store, located at 333 Yonge Street, just across the Eaton Centre, opened on May 3, 1991, featuring a performance by Chris Isaak. Choosing this location was fitting for music fans, as Sam the Record Man and A&A Records were located on the same street. If anything, it put it within some steep competition. As then HMV Canada President Paul Olofs put it, "If you're going to be in record retailing in Canada, you have to be on Yonge Street. Serious music lovers inevitably come to Yonge." Unheard of for a music retailer of the time, the store's retail space was so expansive that there were escalators and elevators to its second and third floors. Not only were there racks of CDs, they also sold merchandise, movies, even electronics. Besides shopping, HMV also had some super cool and knowledgeable employees. Not only could they help you find music, but they could also recommend new music for you to check out or advise you of an upcoming release that might interest you. I suppose you can view them as the literal version of the algorithms of today's streaming music services. During its early years, there was a 36-monitor display above the storefront. These would play the company's commercials or various videos or concerts. In 1992, it even broadcast the Toronto Blue Jays' World Series games. Remember those listening posts from earlier? This location had over 100 scattered across the store. On the third floor, there was an even more elaborate one. It almost looked like a bar, but with an HMV employee stationed to it. You would give the employee an album of your choosing and be able to listen to it before purchasing it. On any given day at the store, you might find a DJ spinning a set, or an artist or group putting on a concert or autograph session, or maybe all three. Now, for me, at least teenage me, for a kid living in the suburbs of Toronto, trips to downtown were an event. After I got my first full-time job, I eventually saved enough funds for regular trips to the downtown core. The routine would be high school during the week, work on weekends, and on the rare chance I would have a weekend off, make my way downtown. On those rare days, I would hop on the TTC subway and explore the city. No matter what I did, I always made sure to end my trips with a visit to the Toronto HMV flagship store. To give the competition a fair shot, I did try shopping at Sam the Record Man and A&A Records, making 2 trips to each, but they were never my go-to for 3 reasons. Firstly, CDs were more expensive over there. Sam the Record Man would typically price new releases around $17.99, while HMV would price them at $14.99. Though only a $3 difference, to someone on a part-time job salary, it was a big difference. Secondly, the places stunk. Literally. I would walk into the store and often wonder, what's that stench? Thirdly, they didn't feel welcoming. I'm not sure if it was just me, but I would walk in and the stores were very standoffish. I almost felt invisible. At least at HMV, someone would acknowledge you upon entering. To a teenager just discovering their musical tastes, a record store, let alone one with 3 floors, was heaven. I would literally plan my trips so that I could spend the most amount of time there, usually 2 to 3 hours. Yes, I spent my time roaming the many shelves of music, but I would spend just as much time at the aforementioned listening posts. They would be scattered across each level and would usually contain the latest releases of the time. You were lucky to get one that worked. Other times, you would end up with the booth with some really choppy headphones, but that never really mattered to me because I could mentally fill in the parts of the music that cut out. Despite the 3 floors of music, the third level was my heaven. Hip-hop, R&B, soul, funk, I loved it. I would sift through the shelves of CDs, and many times I would stumble upon an album that I thought was only available outside of Canada or heard about through recommendations from family or friends. A very vivid memory I have of this was when I found a copy of The Magnificent by DJ Jazzy Jeff. When I found it hidden behind other CDs, I froze in disbelief because I couldn't believe what I saw. I legit grabbed it, raised it in the air, and yelled, "I found it!" The employee on the floor must have thought I lost my mind, but I felt as though I won the lottery. This led to the rush of excitement of getting home, removing the wrapping from said album, placing it into my portable CD player or stereo, these just happened to be mine, hitting play, and then reading through the booklet that came with it. Besides the images that were printed, I was more interested in who produced and wrote each song on the album. As the ways we consume music evolved, so did HMV, sometimes with great success, other times with questionable results. Not only was this the place to consume music, but it was also the place for artists to connect with their fans. Alice Cooper, Green Day, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foxy Brown, Drake, Mariah Carey, and so many others held meet and greets, concerts, or both. It seems like every day there was a new loyalty program launching, but HMV had one before it became a marketing gimmick. Called the CD Club, when you bought 10 CDs, you got one free. After paying for your CD, you would present a physical card. It kind of looked like a miniature birthday card. The employee would open it and place a stamp in it to record your purchase. In addition to music, movies, and apparel, HMV began selling electronics. And weirdly, blankets and housewares. I always found this odd as HMV was never a place I would buy blankets or housewares from. Truthfully, I think it's one of the things that contributed to the company's closure, but more on this later. With the rise of MP3 players and downloadable music, the company created an online music store. Launched in July 2010 as HMV Digital, it allowed users to download individual songs for the cost of 99 cents to $1.29. Mind you, that's in Canadian dollars. To many, myself included, the pricing was the same as Apple's iTunes Music Store. HMV stated that their big differentiator was offering music at higher quality and that their songs could be used on any MP3 player. However, iTunes eventually offered the same features, leaving many to wonder why HMV Digital existed. Even more perplexing, in 2012, HMV announced that they would launch their own streaming music service, pricing it at $5 to stream music to a computer and an additional $5 to stream music to a mobile device. To drive more traffic to the store, the Toronto flagship location launched HMV Underground in May 2014. The location's basement, which was used for storing stock, was turned into performance space. Featuring a stage, lighting system, and a soundboard, the space could accommodate 140 people. With the continual rise in music downloads and the growing popularity of streaming music, it was inevitable that HMV's success would be jeopardized. In January 2017, the company announced that all HMV locations would shut down by April 30th of that year. The company's finances explained why. According to court filings, the company owed more than $39 million and was losing $100,000 a day. To stay open, the company needed to earn $2 million to $5 million annually. With no way to make this happen, a total of 1,340 employees would lose their jobs. And on April 14, 2017 at 6 p.m., HMV's flagship location in Toronto permanently closed its doors. In an interesting turn of events, when HMV announced their closure in 2017, Doug Putman, CEO of rival Sunrise Records, bought the leases to 70 HMV locations, all of which resided in malls, and turned them into Sunrise Records stores. All of this leads into what HMV has become today. The previously mentioned 70 locations has now grown to 85 across Canada, employing 500 staff. I visited some of these locations and they really have picked up where HMV left off. How has Sunrise succeeded where HMV failed? They remembered that music was the core product they sold. Yes, you will find t-shirts, posters, and toys, but you will also know that their priority is selling physical media. CDs, records, even movies, you'll find it all at Sunrise. Remember those super engaged HMV employees? They're here too. In an even stranger turn of events, in 2024, HMV branded sections began opening in select Toys R Us locations. As odd of a pairing as this may seem, it is fitting as Doug Putman also owns Toys R Us Canada. Now, I am emphasizing the Canada and Toys R Us as the American version has a different owner. Much like HMV of yesteryear, these locations sell vinyl records and CDs. As a consumer observing the death, birth, and reincarnation of HMV, I initially got the impression that music on physical media had to end for digital music to rise. Yes, streaming music has its strengths. However, there is something oddly fulfilling of physical media. It gives music a tangibility that streaming will never provide. There is the unexplainable joy of opening that CD jewel case and going through its content. Seeing how reality has played out, it is heartwarming to see that both forms can peacefully exist. Thanks for watching!